Hello and welcome to a live Kerfuffy break with Keri Smith here on Deprogrammed. Welcome if you are a returning viewer or audience member, community member. Welcome back. If you're new here, this is a live show that we do Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes we do a panel. We experimented with a Christian panel a couple weeks ago on Friday, and I think we're going to do more of those because people seem to enjoy it. And again, if you have suggestions for the name for that panel, let me know. I was thinking of calling it that weirdo Christian panel, just so atheists felt comfortable being in the chat. Like, we're not here to be authoritative voices. We're just here to give our opinions. If you want to see what us weirdos think about things, feel free to come. But I don't know if everybody wants to be called a weirdo. So if you have other names that are for the panel that are inviting to people who maybe are not Christian, let me know what you think. But that was fun. Anyway, this is a live show we do Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we do panels, and we just talk about what's in the news, primarily as it relates to culture and ideology. And I know some people say, oh, you talk about politics. Not very much. Not compared to some. If you watch this show, you know that it's more of a culture show. So, welcome. I I had planned to talk today. Originally, I was going to talk about AI porn, which I'm still going to save for another episode. But I did write a piece for Substack, and you can find it at, I think it's kerismith.substack.com, about AI porn and just some of the crazy stuff that's going on in this new world that we find ourselves living in. I will link that piece on the community page after this video if you want to go read it. I think we are in for some unknown future in terms of AI replacing humans when it comes to not just creative fields like music and writing and art, but also the personal online space and things like porn. And I don't know, it's fascinating. Since I wrote that piece, I've also been sent some links about AI pastors, which is crazy. So I'm going to save that one for another day. And today, instead, I got sidetracked because the Andrew Tate has been in the news for a few years now. He and his brother Tristan Tate have built some kind of empire. They're highly searched. Their names are highly searched. They're very popular personalities. They make lots of money selling programs to men. They are held up by some as male role models. And I've kind of avoided looking into them, even though it's been in the news a lot for the past couple of years. I've kind of avoided it because I was like, I don't have to have an opinion on everything. In fact, you'll notice if you do watch the show regularly, I don't often jump in on, I don't know, like drama kind of stuff. I'm not chasing that kind of algorithm where it's like, oh, Steven Crowder and Candace Owens are having a fight. Like, here's what I think. Who cares what I think? Or like, I'll share that opinion with friends maybe, but it's like, I'm not gonna do a video at that. Or even like the Eliza Blue controversy. I never did a video on that. It was sort of like, why? I mean, I definitely formed opinions on it. I spent a long time watching stuff about it, but I didn't think I had anything different to add that wasn't already said somewhere. So usually if I'm not commenting on something that's in the news and drama, it's because I think, well, somebody's already said what I have to say. It's that point is getting out there. I don't have to jump in there and be like, oh, what does Keri think? But in this case, with the Andrew Tate thing, I finally set aside time to watch some things and read some things and figure out what I thought about it, because he and his brother have been charged with human trafficking and also creating a criminal enterprise. And it's reached such a stage of coverage in the news where, he and his brother now, as of last night, have both been on Tucker Carlson, these really highly viewed interviews. Other cultural commentators are weighing in. I saw Candace Owens' video about Tate, and looking at some of the opinions out there, I didn't like with other drama things. Where I think, well, what I think about it's already out there. So in this case, I don't see a lot of people saying what I think. There are some, but for the most part, I see either people sort of remaining silent about him or offering some sort of defense or of his character, or a, a defense of uh not really a defense, let's say an attack on people who would criticize him, maybe, and a scolding kind of on people who would criticize him. And that was surprising to me. And whenever I see conflicting opinions from people I respect, like with the Barbie movie, that was one of the first times with the film I saw people I respect, some who loved it, some who hated it. That was interesting to me. I was like, okay, I guess I have to watch the Barbie movie and see what I think about it. And I felt that way about the Tate brothers because I saw these conflicting opinions from people I respect. So I watched a lot of footage and I read a lot about him. And I'll say this up front, I'm not going to comment on my opinion on his legal issues and whether or not he's guilty of human trafficking. I don't know enough about the human trafficking laws um, in the country he's being held in. I don't actually That's not something I feel comfortable forming or sharing an opinion on yet, and I'm waiting to see more about that. And I'm not really that interested in it. I'm more interested in the fact that he is held up as this role model for men by some, and that he's attained such popularity in speaking to and for men. That's interesting to me because that's the culture aspect. And I definitely have formed an opinion on that. Um, I think he's a garbage person. I think he's a garbage man. I think he speaks garbage. I think he sells garbage. He profits off of garbage. He puts garbage out into the world. And I don't think he is a good role model for men. So if you just want to, too long didn't watch, there you go. You can check out. That's what I think. I think that his popularity among men really says a lot about the state of culture, because we are in a world that has been denigrating and demonizing men and masculinity for so long now that I think people are desperate for someone, anyone to challenge that denigration of men. And because he says some things that are true and has some criticisms of culture and that denigration of men and masculinity, he says some of those things that are true. I think that's enough for some people. And I think that's why he's so popular. It's not enough for me. And you know, I was texting with my pastor about this beforehand because I was hoping he could join us today last minute. I wanted to ask him some questions about the qualifications for elders and stuff, but he couldn't join us. But one thing he said is, I think he said that, I think we're in a war, not just a cultural war, spiritual war, but we're in a war to define masculinity. And, because it's been under attack for so long. And I think that this kind of hero figure or leader does just as much damage as the woke left when it comes to defining masculinity. And I absolutely agree with that. So I'm going to explain a little bit about who he is. If you don't know, if you are like I was until recently and you've avoided it, and then I just want to share some of my thoughts on it. And if you disagree, feel free to disagree in the chat, of course. I've already got, oh, hello, Lady Gravemaster. Thank you for the super chat for $10. I love this lady. She says, I dislike Tate, but that does not stop some of his points being accurate. I completely agree. Honestly, there's a reason he's popular. He's hitting back against much of what has been plaguing males for over a decade now. Absolutely agree. I think there has been a scarcity of male role models and a vacuum that's been created for people to step into that space and to defend men and defend masculinity. And I think that's part of why he's so popular. I just don't think he is a good role model. I don't think he is the one that I would think anyone should be emulating, anyone, men or otherwise. So we're going to talk about some of that. But yes, I think he's popular because he is someone who's willing to say something about the very real war on masculinity and on men. So thank you, Lady Gravemaster. So let's start with this video. Now, if you want to see more about him and if you want to know specifics about the legal charges he's facing, I recommend this YouTube site and Twitter account called Milk Bar TV. And I think they're doing a great job of compiling footage. And I think they're being pretty fair. Here is a video I'm going to start with. And the reason I'm starting with this one is because not because it's formed my opinions on his legal issues. Again, I'm not going to offer any opinions on his legal issues. This helped inform my opinion on what his character is. If he is someone who is a good role model for men. So we're going to watch some of this here. And I hope Milk Bar TV will be okay with me playing some of this. I'll pause it once in a while. We'll talk about it. Okay.
What are you charged with? That's a really good question. I'm charged with being the head of an organized criminal group, which is in charge of recruiting girls to make TikTok videos.
They face charges which include human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women.
OnlyFans is the best hustle in the world.
Now, I just want to pause this to point something out, and they've pointed this out in several of their videos. And I think this speaks to his character, not whether or not he's guilty. He obfuscates what he's being accused with, and in the criminal charges, for example, it mentions OnlyFans repeatedly. He doesn't say that now when talking with Tucker Carlson or when talking about the charges. He keeps saying TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. It's about TikTok. Because I think, like they say, and I agree with them, I think he wants anybody who's just casually listening or maybe have seen him on one interview to think like, wow, I can't believe that guy's like in trouble for, getting girls to do TikTok videos. He purposefully doesn't say OnlyFans. But you can see in the documents yourself, OnlyFans is the site which is a porn site, where men pay for sexual images and videos. That's what's mentioned, but for some reason, why would he not say that site? That's a manipulator tactic. I think he's gaslighting. He's like leaving something out. That speaks to his character to me right out the gate. And you can see here, they've went and found old footage and they've mixed it in with his interview to kind of show instances where he's not being completely forthright.
Are they accusing you of using violence or?
No. They're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
I don't mention webcam until after I've had sex with the girl. If you're on dates and you're trying to mention it and shit, it just doesn't work. It puts them off. I'd never do that. That's disgusting. I'm not a whore. It's just not gonna work. You continue as normal, no mention of webcam. You fuck the girl. After you fuck the girl, you do the PhD test. So yeah,
I'm so sorry. I should have told you guys ahead of time if you have little ears in the room. I am so sorry. Yeah, there's going to be language. So my apologies. Anyway, we'll continue. He just said, yeah, he once the way that he grooms, I'm going to use the word grooming here because this is about grooming someone to break down their barriers slowly over time and get them to do something they're uncomfortable with. Again, I'm not talking about the legality of whether or not that's legal. I'm talking about the morality of it. I think it's gross. So he's basically saying, yeah, when you first meet a girl, she's not going to immediately do porn and help make money for you. You have to ease her into it. And I use this method where, I get her to fall in love with me and then I have sex with her. And then once I have sex with her, I do the PhD. You're about to hear what that stands for.
Corporative.com, I have my PhD program. And that is PhD is a pimp and hose degree that I'm.
Yay.
Clever. That teaches basically how I got girls, how I met girls, how I got girls to like me, how I got girls to fall in love with me to work on webcam for me.
Oh, and you're always working. Why don't you work for me so we spend more time together? Work for you doing what? So I'll have a webcam business. Oh, I don't want to do that. So, okay, I know you don't want to do that, but listen, come, let's have a meeting. Let's just talk about it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Fine. But let me explain it to you properly. In fact, I'll bring one of the girls who works for me. Your bottom bitch is the one who does the selling. You don't do the selling. The girl has to hear it from a girl. And this is where your bottom bitch has to be trained. That's why I said it's so important to have a good first girl.
Because that's what I did. That was my MO, was find girls, make them love me, and make them work for me.
This girl's like, okay, well, I'll try it. Put both girls on camera together the first day. So the new girl can sit there and just sit with the other girl and get drunk. Give him a bottle of vodka.
First night that I worked for him, Andrew bought me like 5 bottles of wine. So I got completely drunk because I'd never done webcam work. So I was very, very nervous.
And that's how I got rich. So that teaches everything I know from start to finish about not only getting girls, not only obtaining them, but retaining them. Because that's a completely different game as well.
And over time.
Okay, so yeah, he's like talking about, he was selling a PhD program, pimp and hose degree to men, teaching them how to do this. It's a kind of a form. I think it's grown out of that PUA, the pickup artist community, where it's not just like, he's like the extreme version, guys. It's not just about like, hey, you're an incel who hasn't been able to find anyone to sleep with you. Let me teach you how to get someone to sleep with you. He's like, I'm going to go further and teach you how to be a pimp and how to groom women and break down their barriers. And you got to have a bottom bee. And she comes in and does the selling for you. And she's got to be loyal. It's so disgusting. Like, I can't believe that this is even a controversial opinion to have. Again, I'm not speaking on the legality of it. I'm talking about the morality of it. This guy's gross. Something else I've heard from some of the people defending him. And Candace Owens was saying this in her video, this is 10 years ago. It's 10 years ago. It's not 10 years ago. Read the complaint. And he's on camera as recently as 2022. That's last year, saying there's still 3 girls working for him. He's still pushing OnlyFans links last year. And the complaint is not about 10 years ago. So some of the clips that are being shown in this video, yes, they're older. But it's not like, oh, and then where's the redemption arc? I haven't seen it yet. I mean, that's why I haven't seen it yet. So, yeah. I think Cameron Pasha's here. I didn't see his comment, but I did see someone say hello to him. Hello, Cameron, if you're here. Pirate Tomsky, give it up for one of our mods, Pirate Tomsky, says Keri. Pirate, I was going to tell you, I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, guess what my husband and I are watching now? We're watching Deadwood. You're going to be so excited. We're finally watching the show you've been recommending. Aaron says what he's describing is grooming. Yes, this is grooming. That word has become very common in the past few years. And I think with good reason, because of what a lot of people on the left are doing is grooming of children. It is ideological grooming. I really like conceptual James Lindsay's definition of grooming, and about an adult forming this intimacy with a child and breaking down barriers, and this, forming this secrecy and trust with them to get them to do things they wouldn't otherwise do. You can do that ideologically. For sexual purposes, or you can do it ideologically for, brainwashing purposes, to recruit someone to your cult. What he is describing is a kind of grooming of women. Here's the barriers. Here's how I break them down. Here's the manipulative tactics I use. It's filthy. I think it's filthy. Hey, John. Thanks for being a member. He says, yes, Deadwood is such a great show. Oh, good. Okay, well, we enjoyed the first episode, so we'll let you know what we think. I'm sure we're going to be talking about it now because it's one of my mods' favorite shows. So, John says, Keri, they're coming after our kids from a different direction. Yes. I think that the woke left attacks on masculinity, and then I think this, sort of phony defense of masculinity, in my opinion, I think they're two sides of the same messed up coin, the same gross coin. I don't like either of these portrayals of masculinity. I don't think either are good things to emulate. So let's continue with some of this dude, in case you don't know who he is.
I just build up this big little empire of webcam girls. At one point, I had 4 locations, 75 girls working for me. I'd take around half of the money, around 50%. You take 50%. Around 50%.
They thought they were on 50%. And I said that the disparity is because of taxes.
He would just pay me a flat fee of £15 an hour.
We got to the point where we had these guys.
This is hilarious. He contradicts himself all the time. Like any con artist, he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He lies just in plain view. And it's weird. Sometimes like people who do that, politicians, think of any politician who does this, who just lies. It's almost like they're so bold when they do it. It just kind of just doesn't matter. They just, people are like, but he's charismatic, or I like his confidence. He just lies. He said he was paying these women 50%. Then in his programs, he's like, I told him they're making 50%, but actually I lie about stuff, taxes I have to take off so I can get that extra 30% as well. And then I give basically what they're getting. Then you get this one girl being like £15 an hour. This dude's just lying. Cameron, I would love to come on the live stream and share my thoughts with you. I would love that. I have a lot. I actually prepared today, though, like 4 pages of things I want to get through. So if you're still around, Cameron, because I have this thing I want to deliver first. If you're still around in an hour, I know that's a lot to ask. Check in with me. If not, I'm happy to. We can do a actually, that might be better. Let's do a separate video together, and we can have. It sounds like you might have some disagree with me, so we could have a totally separate video with where you offer me other opinions if today doesn't work out. But I love you, dude. Karen. Oh, and Bob, thank you for the super chat. $5. Okay.
Guys falling in love with my models, serious, big time in love, right? Sending crazy money. And they were convinced they were going to meet the chick. This is
real quick. Someone says this is like exposing an ex porn star and shaming them for their past. I'm not convinced this is an ex thing of his. That's why I said I haven't seen the redemption arc, and in the complaint and according to his own videos, he was still, there were still 3 OnlyFans girls working for him as of last year. So I don't buy that. Sorry. If I see a redemption arc from this dude, I'll be the first one to praise God. I just haven't seen it. And maybe that's what Cameron can shed light on, or someone else to me later. But I'm going to continue with what I prepared anyway.
This is almost where I kind of felt bad, because they're like, can we meet? I've sent you $200,000.
When you look at the money that I was actually bringing in, it just doesn't even scratch the surface.
I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all.
I was all about trying to get paid. Like I used sex as a tool to make women love me so they'd obey me and live in my house and make me money. That's what I wanted. So I was a pimp in that sense.
Were there any other instances where there was physical abuse?
I saw him smack girls with a belt.
My ideas? Do you want my ideas? That's right, lock the door, you knew I was going to beat the out of you. If you behaved, I wouldn't have to hit you, would I? You don't. Get out. You can't stay in there forever.
Once again, this is an IQ test, right? Because any guy who's bad with women would look at it and go, takes a woman beater.
I say it. Look at the camera. This is what happens, listen. Look at the camera. Why are you getting hit? Why are you getting beaten? Listen. You. Do as I say.
Any man who's actually a G, who's been around a little bit, would look at the video and go, man, she wants that. The media machine, they'd call up ex-girlfriends and say, if you have anything bad to say about Andrew, we can pay you $50,000.
I'm going to pause here just for a second because I actually don't disagree with him that maybe that woman did. Maybe that's part of their sexual role play or whatever. That part of it, I don't know. I don't have as many. My opinions on that are not as strong as actually some of the men I've seen. Like Billboard Chris takes great exception to this. I've seen, and I understand where he's coming from. Just for me, it's more like the lying and stuff, and just his overall character of like selling a pimping hose degree and stuff, and teaching men how to get women on the payroll of OnlyFans and move past their boundaries to get them to do porn in the first place. Like that's really kind of where I just feel this great revulsion. That'll probably be controversial with some who are like, how can you not be as offended by the him hitting the woman? Again, I don't know what their arrangement is, and for whatever reason, it bothers me more the description of how he sells and coaches men on grooming women and, you know, becoming a pimp is like that. All of that bothers me a lot more. Oh, hey, Gay Dub Drew. I have one of your videos queued up, sir. Look, I got prepared for today. I've got one of your videos. I'm glad you're here. ADL for $1.99. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being in the chat today. Okay.
$1,000 for the story. And they tried very hard. They didn't find any evidence of anything.
And I had gone to the shower. I came back and I noticed he was, like, I saw him raping her. And
people say, why did you in Romania? And I explain my 5 reasons. One of them is the Me Too era. They go, oh, well, you're a rapist. I say, no, I'm not a fucking rapist. But I like the idea of being able to just say to do what I want. I like being free.
And of course, they don't go out. They're not allowed out. You stay in the house.
Because I'm not particularly, what would you say, impressed by what he's done on.
Just a funny moment. I adore Jordan Peterson, and he's about to say he's not impressed with what this guy's done in terms of teaching men to be pimps, which is great. I adore Peterson. Anyone who watches the channel knows this. He helped me turn my life around. It's hard to even put into words how much this man has helped me. But can we agree this suit sucks? I think it's because I have a problem with things that are not symmetrical in general. Like, even I don't like off the shoulder dresses. I'm like, no, they both need sleeves. Like, my brain is like, why is one side red and one side's blue? I don't like it. Sorry, just a moment of levity there.
The sex business front, it seems to me a bit on the pimpy side, let's say.
I get called a pimp a lot, but and the reason I use the term is because I don't see it as a negative term. I see it as positively inspirational and motivating person.
She has to respect you and love you and want to work with you. And that's done through positively inspirational and motivating person.
I'm going to send you a book. It's a guy called Pimpin' Ken, who's a street pimp in the 90s, and he wrote a book, 50 Laws of the Game. And one of the laws of the game is a hoe without instruction is headed for destruction. They're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
Let me read you then what you have said about what you have done.
Sure.
Coercing them by being nice. Let's just say something real quick. Is it nice to be dishonest to a person and use and be fake to them and make them think that they're your girlfriend, and then have a whole system set up where you bring in your bottom B to come in to sell this idea of doing porn to her? Is that nice, actually? Or are you just using the illusion of being nice to do something deceptive to them and manipulative? It's not actually being nice. Yeah.
You have said, my job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, get her to fall in love with me to the point where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so we could become rich together.
I don't think that's what I personally said. I think
that's exactly what you said on your website.
No, I've never said that.
So yeah, on corporatetape.com, I have my PhD program.
I think the belief is that you were charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, that's human trafficking, because what you do is you force a girl to work against her will for financial gain. That's human trafficking. And their justification for this is that girls do TikTok. Some girls I know who they found who say they're not victims have TikTok accounts.
PhD is...
Again, if you notice, when he's doing the interviews now, currently, about the charges, he just continues to say TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. He doesn't mention the fact that in the complaint, this is about OnlyFans. What he did use TikTok, and apparently he used TikTok to ease them into, like, if they were hesitant to set up the OnlyFans account and start selling porn, he would get them on TikTok first, doing influencer kind of stuff, and then move from TikTok to OnlyFans. But the complaint is about OnlyFans.
His pimp and hose degree that I'm
Clever.
Okay, so I thought that video went viral apparently a few weeks ago, and then And then that's when I guess people started to have such differing opinions on this, and which is part of what made me interested, was seeing people like maybe even Cameron, if he's still here, having a different opinion than some of my other friends, like Force of Light. So that's when I started looking into it. I want to say a couple of things about my opinion that I said right up front at the beginning. I said I think he's a scumbag. I do think he's a predator. I think he grooms and he predates on women. And I think he's a garbage example of masculinity or someone to emulate. But again, I haven't said, and I don't have an opinion on whether or not he's guilty of human trafficking. I don't even understand all the laws around that. And I absolutely agree that, at least in the case of when you're talking about adult women, even if they're being groomed, even if a person is being manipulated to join a cult like leftism or like Nexium or like Heaven's Gate or whatever, they're still adults. They're still responsible for their own choices. And so I don't know how that part of it is going to play out about the legal charges, but in terms of what I think of his character, I think he's despicable. And what's weird to me is that the biggest pushback I've seen seems to be from people who live by this idea of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so that really started making me think, because I've been opposed to that idea for a while now. I remember, and I found this old tweet of mine this morning. I remember back when Claire Lehman started saying stuff in defense of authoritarian COVID policy. And someone on a James Lindsay thread, someone had told James and I, something to the effect of, but she's on our side, and sort of pushing this idea of the enemy of our enemy is our friend. And she's on our side because she criticizes woke. And I was like, I don't live by that. I said that back then. That was a couple years ago. I don't live by the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think that's a bad way to live, because for one thing, it shields con artists, predators, grifters, if you want to use another word for con artists, people who say things that they're not actually sincere about, but say things in order to gain power or money or fame. It shields monsters if you do that. Think about Harvey Weinstein. This is someone that pretty much everyone can agree now. Harvey Weinstein, monster, right? Predator. He groomed people. He manipulated women. He dangled opportunities, either giving them opportunities or taking opportunities away in order to coerce them, manipulate them into choosing to have sex with him. Gross person, right? But people knew that for decades. Why did they stay silent about him? Because he was in their tribe. Because they lived by the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So he's in my tribe, therefore I'm going to stay silent or even support him. That's what they did. I wish there had been more people on the left who were not blinded by tribalism and greed, who just lived by principles instead and said, no, this guy's a monster. He would have been exposed a lot earlier. It shields people like him. This whole tribalism or my enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's not true. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is also your enemy. Sometimes they're a bad person. So I don't like it for that reason, because it allows those types of people to hide. The other thing is that it allows you to be easily manipulated. So, for example, during the COVID years, we all saw this happen. We all saw this tribalism happen in front of our eyes. All they have to do, if you're making your decision, if your opinion is based on what the other tribe likes or doesn't like, or what they support or what they attack, if that's what your opinion is based on, you're very easily controlled, because all they have to do is come out and say, hey, the other tribe is attacking this or attacking this person. like the pushback I guess I'm getting is because people are saying, oh, well, the left is attacking Tate. The left is attacking him. Therefore, you should be silent about what you think about him as a role model and his character. No, I don't care if the left is supporting him or attacking him. My opinion is not dependent on what the left thinks in any way. It's not dictated by what they think. And if it were, I'd be so easily manipulated where, you know, the messaging gets passed down where it's like, hey, the left is against this. Oh, well, I guess I better be for it. Or I guess I better be silent about it. At the very least. No. We saw this play out during COVID policy at the beginning. We saw people lining up with what they naturally thought because COVID policy was about authoritarianism. You know, whether you believe the government has the right to come in and restrict individual rights and people's right to life and the pursuit of happiness. Does the government have the power to tell you you can't go to work or to shut down your business but let the big conglomerates stay open? Does the government have that power to tell you you have to wear a mask when you go outside? That was about authoritarianism versus individualism. And originally, we saw that being expressed. There were a lot of people on the left who were anti-authoritarianism, who were protesting COVID policy. And in my little town in Georgetown, Texas, they continued to. Some of those people, their principles were so strong that even when the tribalism kicked in, they didn't go over to where they were told they were supposed to be. They continued every Sunday to come out and protest mask mandates. And these were like leftist hippies, like actual progressives out there protesting it. I also saw some sort of a little bit more authoritarian members of my conservative family, some of my conservative family members who supported the authoritarian measures all the way through. Even when tribalism came in and they were told, go over here with the right, they didn't. My aunt, for example, she continued to say she agreed with mask mandates and things like that. So that was like, that's if a person is principled on those kind of issues, that's where they were. But what happened was the media, the politicians, the celebrities, the whole cathedral played in our existing tribalism, this whole right-left thing. They came in, they dropped the messaging once they figured out what the narrative was. Oh, the left supports the COVID policy, supports mask mandates, supports lockdown, supports all this stuff, and the right opposes it all. So then you see all the followers, like 70% of people maybe. If you trust the Ash conformity experiments, maybe 70% of people, followers, they all just lined up with their tribe. Oh, the right's over here. Okay, that's where I am. Oh, the left's over here. That's where I am. So easy to manipulate. So no, I'm not gonna muzzle myself or form my opinion based on what the left thinks about a monster. I don't care if the left hides the monster like Weinstein or if they attack him like Tate. They don't dictate what I think. Why do you let them dictate what you think and what you say? And I think it says something about, maybe it's about belief systems and what you hold at the top of your hierarchy of importance. What do you worship? That kind of thing. Like what's most of primary importance to you? Right and left is not of primary importance to me. It's not. My political beliefs or who's voting most like me at any given time, that's not way up here at the top. And that might be because of my belief system. So this might shake out to be a belief system thing. At the top of my hierarchy is truth, which is God. I'm a Christian, so that's going to impact the way I view things. I look at Tate and what he's doing. I'm like, this is immoral. Like, oh, but political ideology requires that you don't say that. What? I don't care. I had someone who I like, someone I recognize from my comments. I'm sorry, I forget your name at the moment, but I recognize you. I see you a lot. We agree on a lot, this guy and I. And I don't mean to call you out, so maybe it's better I don't remember your name. But he said something like, it's virtue signaling to attack Tate right now or something like that. And he basically was making the argument that because the left is attacking him, we should stay quiet. And I was like, no, I didn't agree with that at all. Is it just virtue signaling because it's Tate, but not for anyone else? I mean, I call out con artists, or I offer my opinion on con artists, on wolves in shepherd's clothing of all types, most frequently on woke pastors. They're the ones that get me the most riled. Why? Because I think it's really dangerous when people start following someone they think is not just a sheep, a fellow sheep, but they think is a shepherd. And that person turns out to be a wolf, a monster, a con artist. I think that's really awful. So I talk about that. Most often when I talk about it online, it's about woke preachers who are also wolves in shepherd's clothing. And none of these people had a problem. They don't have a problem with me talking about that. But then if you say that about someone they perceive to be on our political side, well, you shouldn't say that. No. We have a different way of viewing the world. We have a different way of living. Clearly, we have different principles, and we may line up on some things, but the way in which we order, like, what's important is different then, because no con artist is on my side. No monsters on my side. Someone who behaves like this, who sells the idea to men that the way to be masculine is to pimp women, no. You're not on my side. The idea of, like, I guess when you're talking about sides then is different, because my primary, like, the sides thing is not right and left, and I've said that a lot. At that point, I kind of wonder, like, how well do you know what I think about things? Because it doesn't come down to right and left to me. So I hope I'm articulating that well. I had this was so great when I put it in my notebook of the things I wanted to say, but I don't want to just sit here and read it. I guess there are some things that are more important than political tribalism. That, for me at least, and I think that's true for life, even if people don't agree. I think there are more important things than right and left. And I think that a lot of times people are willing to sacrifice their principles for their ideology or their political tribe. And I don't think that's a good way to live. I think it turns you into a hypocrite. It makes you no different than a leftist. Well, I don't want to live my life that way, and I'm not going to. Who am I anyway? You don't have to care what I think, what my opinion is. So, if you disagree, that's okay. I'm still going to say what I think. The other reason why I think it's bad to live by the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As I said, it turns you into a hypocrite, makes you easy to manipulate and control. Offers shelter for con artists, predators, and monsters. And the fourth reason, because it makes your perceived side, look really bad when that person is finally exposed. When that wolf in shepherd's clothing is finally exposed, like Weinstein. When it reaches a critical mass where everyone agrees, what do we think about the left, about them covering for him for so long? We're all like, how could you? Like, we all agree now. But are we not doing the same thing if we say, like, don't say anything until and unless it reaches a critical mass where we must? And then it makes you look like the hypocrites you are, the cowards you are. I'm all for throwing wolves in shepherd's clothing out the door. Like, as soon as they can be exposed, the better. Like, I don't truck with you. I understand why other people do. I understand the whole thing about, like, well, they're not my friend, but they're my ally, my political, and they make good points. Great. You truck with them. I'll still be your friend, even though you're making what I think is a poor choice, if I think you're a good person. But I'm not trucking with that piece of crap. I think they make us all look bad. And I've heard this many times where it's like, oh, well, they're saying some things that are true. They're saying some things that are true and that our side agrees with. Yeah, well, they're going to make us all look terrible when their true nature is revealed. So I'm not riding with them. They're not in my caravan. I don't know. Maybe I'm not stating this clearly enough. I think they do more harm than good. Whatever good they do in the short term, while they're picking different bits of truth to say to pepper their bullshit with, whatever good they do, and let's say they reach a huge platform like Andrew Tate, and it's like, oh, well, that must be good because he's getting some of these ideas out there. That must be good. All of that good is done away with when they're exposed. They do more harm than good in the long run. I truly believe that. It took me a while to realize that. I used to say, oh, it's okay. It's okay that there's like, I think it's, I was trying to I understand the need for some like big platform con artists to say things that are true because they have a bigger platform. And it's like, that's okay. They're the Olive Garden. They're taking good, authentic Italian food and they're popularizing it for the masses. And so what if there's some crap and processed food in there, but it's in general, there's, they're making it for the masses. So that's good. It's still not authentic. It's still the Olive Garden. So I've now reached a different opinion. And I don't think that the good they do, the perceived good they do, outweighs the bad. I don't. I think they sow discord, they create drama, they take advantage of people. I think they predators, they prey on people, they cause division. They all in the service of gaining as much for themselves as they can until the gig is up and they have to go on to the next group to be a predator over there in that pool, and then they remake themselves. And D Sub says, I enjoy Olive Garden once a year though. I get it. So do I. But it's all about them. And listen to those clips from him. It's all about him and how much money he makes. He's bragging about ripping guys off. I've got guys who would sell their houses and take out loans just to give me money, for my ladies. It's all about how much he can gain for himself. That's not some higher purpose. That's greed. That's what a con artist is concerned with. They use the sincere beliefs of others. They speak them back to you, your own beliefs, so they can gain money, fame, power. I'm not down with those people. I don't care how much influence they have. I don't care how much power they have. I wish that were more as common as I thought it was. I wish more people were like that. Like, it doesn't matter to me. During Harvey Weinstein, I wish more people had been like, what's her name? Lupita, the actress from 12 Years a Slave. Is that the movie? She was the one. There may have been more, but she was the one I read about who basically told him he tried the same tactics on her. And he was like, you'll never make it if you don't do. He was trying to coerce her, manipulate her, and groom her. You'll never make it. I'll destroy you in this town, whatever. He did the same implied threats. And she was basically like, okay, and left. She left. She did not have sex with him. She showed that that's possible. And by the way, she proved him wrong. She ended up winning an Oscar. But she didn't even have to put, yes, this is her name. I don't know how to say her last name, but Lupita Nyong'o. I think that's probably it. What a badass. Because she stood by her principles. She's like, whatever it was in her and her beliefs that helped her to say no to that deal with the devil, that alliance with the devil, she did. I wish there were more people like her. So, a couple of other things. I've got some other points. Here's one. The other thing I've heard, aside from the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which I don't agree with. I've also heard, well, he's helped a lot of men. He says some things that are true. Yes. I think he has. He has said some things that are true. He's got, somebody pointed me to his website. He's got some tenets there for men with some new program he's selling. It's like, it's basically like, it's good to be a strong man and competent man and take care of the women in your life. And I agree with a lot of those things. I think all con artists say some things that are true. They pepper their snake oil with bits of truth. Look at the Nexium cult leader, Keith Raniere. I do believe that qualified as a cult. I do believe he was a con artist, and I do believe he was a predator and took advantage of people, and he groomed women to get beyond, to break down their boundaries and get them to do things they wouldn't have otherwise done. I'm also friends with someone who used to be in that cult, and she's told me in an interview, Nikki Klein, about all the positive things that she gained from Nexium. And I absolutely believe she did gain those things. I think I've seen his lectures. Keith Raniere peppered in a lot of truth. He said a lot of things that were true and helpful, a lot of self-improvement stuff. That's what makes these guys appealing. It's almost like, do people really think that like all cults are obviously terrible? Like the people that joined Heaven's Gate, do we think like everything they say is absolutely crazy? No, they're saying some things that are true. Any cult, Scientology, any leftism. Why do you think so many people are in it? It's like the biggest cult in our culture right now because it says some things that are true. That's how you get people to fall in with a cult. John, doesn't HG Tudor teach us this? Yes, HG Tudor, if you haven't seen it, I got to interview him. He's a fascinating dude. He's got a very popular YouTube channel, and he's helped me a lot. He is a self-proclaimed narcissist and sociopath who teaches normies about narcissism and about sociopaths and how to spot them and how to spot their tactics. And I would definitely recommend him. And go watch, if you haven't seen it, look up the Deprogrammed interview with HG Tudor. I think he's fascinating. So, John Thomas, Satan is cunning, father of lies. Best way to lie is with partial truth. Yes. Cameron, Scientology uses a lot of ancient mysticism, which is true, and then adds its stuff on top. Yes. I am going to talk to you, dude. I'm glad you're still here. Again, if not today, then later. Give me just a second to get through, or not a second. Give me more time to get through some of this stuff. Okay. I have a couple of other videos queued up. I have more points to make. I want to pause here for a second. We're going to watch just a couple other things because this isn't just about Andrew Tate. His brother also has said many things that I find to be just repulsive morally. Again, not talking about the legality of it. Here he is saying basically that if fathers ask him for advice on what to do to make sure their daughters don't end up as sex workers, well, you'll hear what he says, what advice he gives those fathers.
This is a good question. Tips on raising daughters so they don't end up 304s, prostitutes, on the pole, OnlyFans, etc. Most men I know don't have daughters for these reasons. I'll chime in very quickly and I'll say, one, I have recruited, I think, although you've worked with a lot, more girls into, I guess, the adult entertainment industry than anyone else. I really have. And the one type of girl I couldn't recruit were girls with rich parents. Oh, do that for money. I don't need money. My family's rich. So when I see these broke boys on Twitter and on Instagram be like, oh, my daughter, I'm raising her right, and she's like 9 years old, but he like works some crappy job. He's a wagey. I'm like, she's going to get that Louis Vuitton purse one way or another. So you might want to level up your game and buy it for her, my G.
So basically he just said, I can turn, and he's bragging. He tells fathers who come to him for advice on how to keep my daughter from becoming a sex worker, being pulled into this dark lifestyle. I'm saying if a father doesn't want the daughter there, I'm sure he views it as a dark lifestyle. he says his advice is basically you have to be rich. That's the only way, because I can pimp any girl. I don't care how you raise her. I don't care what her values are. I can turn any girl unless you have money, because that's all that matters to women is how much money you have. Otherwise, I can turn them into a whore. How gross. First of all, it's objectively false. What a braggart and a liar. It's false. Fathers. It does matter how you raise your daughter. It matters a lot more than how much money you have. The biggest indicator, we've talked about this before, but when you look at, if you look at stats, like the biggest predictor of whether a child is going to be successful in terms of, you know, mentally successful, physically, in terms of finances, stability, the biggest predictor is not what race they are, what sex they are, how much money they have even. It's whether they have a stable home life with two parents in the home, like a healthy upbringing. It's not about how much money you have. And what a disgusting view of women, by the way, also. And if that's your view of women, because that's the women you hang out with and you pimp, Tristan Tate, well, I mean, you're a garbage man. You're hanging out with garbage women. See, you're not a quality man. You're hanging out with women who aren't quality. Why would you go to this guy for advice anyway? He's a piece of trash. Yes, thank you, ADL. Thank you for the super chat. 499. He says it's a depressing state of affairs when the only men that you can turn to are pimps. Yes. Right? I'm laughing, but I also understand it. Trust me, I get it. He has said a lot of true things. He pushes back against this war on men and masculinity. That's what makes him attractive. I get it. But it's also kind of funny that it's like the only, you got to go to a pimp. What? No. It sort of makes you do a double take, right? Like, I saw this really funny response. Oh, I wish I could credit the guy. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Here it is. I'll put this on screen. So when I kind of shared my thoughts about the Tate brothers online, there are a lot of people I respect who disagree. That's okay. Then that means it's a worthy conversation to have. Because why are we disagreeing? That's of interest to me. Figuring that out. I think it might come down to belief system. I'm not sure. I think it might be belief system and what you put at the top of the hierarchy. I don't put political allegiance up there at the very top. So that could be it. But there were some people who agreed with my opinion. One was Konstantin Kisin, and he said, there's this funny thing here. He said, it's weird how so many people can't see this. And the best answer was this guy, Peter Haig, PhD. He says, he just wants men to mentally toughen up, take responsibility, exercise, and become pimps. What's the issue? That's so funny. Leave him alone. He just wants guys to take responsibility, become strong men, exercise, and become pimps. Like, he was being silly. He made me laugh. Thank you for that laugh, Peter. I've got one more clip here, and then I'll share some more thoughts. He just wants you to become a pimp. Okay. This is another video clip from Milk Bar TV. And this is Tristan Tate because they were selling these programs to men, okay, on how to become pimps, pimp and hose degrees, whatever. It's like a mutated extreme version of the pickup artist stuff. So here's Tristan talking about how teaching men how to manipulate virgins so they can have sex with a certain number of virgins per year.
Run game like me and meet the women who I meet. When you run game like me and meet the women who I meet and roll in the circles I meet, you meet beautiful virgins sometimes. Me, I'll do 2 or 3 virgins a year. Now, how do you date a virgin when you're an ice cold player? There is a tactic which I'm going to share with you.
I just love the way that in this whole pickup artist world or whatever, just the way they call themselves certain things like that, like an ice cold player. It's like, do you call yourself that? That's like my it makes me think of my husband said one time somebody was helping him with the groceries or something and putting him in the car, and he was like, I may get the story wrong. If he's listening, he'll have to correct me. But he was like, I'm a Jenga master, talking about how his skill at putting all the groceries away. And there was someone there, I think it was a kid, who was like, do you call yourself that? Jenga master. It's even worse with something like this, isn't it? I'm an ice cool player. Shut up.
On how to date a virgin and how to take a girl's virginity. Now, the recipe hasn't changed, but the tactics and the implementation has certainly changed. Be their boyfriend for 3 months and be in a nice relationship with them. That is the recipe. I'm sorry, guys. You want to run into a virgin and fuck her the next day? Don't ask me how. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't even think it's possible. You have to be their boyfriend for an extended period of time. You then have to take her virginity on the 2nd month anniversary or something along those lines. And I'm going to teach you how to do it while still being in a Playboy lifestyle scenario.
Now listen to this part. Again, I said at the beginning, I said it a little late, but if you have little ears, they use a lot of language. I apologize. But he's about to explain how you can, with zero effort on your part, convince this virgin that you're her boyfriend, even though you're not. And how you don't actually take her on real dates, but you make her think she's on dates. He seriously is like, let me teach you how to lie to and deceive and manipulate these virgins. So after 3 months of very low effort, you can break down their boundaries enough that they have sex with you now that you've deceived them, and then you can dump them.
What you do with your virgin is you turn everything into a date. I need to go have a business lunch with my brother or my friends. I make sure she's there. I Uber her in, I Uber her out. If I have to go for a drive, I make sure she's with me. I go pick her up, do my drive, drop her off, go back home. If I have to go to a club, she's part of my double booking scenario. She's always with me at least 3 or 4 times a week, regardless of what I'm doing. I go to a lot of lunches and a lot of dinners. I eat at restaurants a lot. I take her to the restaurant. Nothing about my life has changed. I'm not going out of my way. I'm not making specific time for her. I'm not trying my best to take her on dates and show her a good time. What I'm doing is I'm adding her into my normal everyday life. Now, to me, I'm fucking my girls. I have my girlfriends, my relationships. I'm getting my sex. I'm having my drinks, hanging out with my friends. Nothing has changed in my life apart from there's some quiet girl next to me half the time when I'm out and I would otherwise be alone. But to her, in her mindset, Tristan is my boyfriend.
So there you go. That's how to lie to manipulate a virgin for the sole purpose of convincing her, coercing her, manipulating her into breaking down her boundaries and having sex with you after a few months. So then you can then discard her and move on to another virgin. He says he brags that he beds about 3 virgins a year doing this 3-month method that he'll teach you how to do because he's a good male role model. So yeah, I'm just at a loss a little bit. What a dweeb, someone says. Yes, what a dweeb. I'm an asshole player. Force of Light. Hello, ladies. I want to talk to you ladies too about this. Maybe we could do a panel show. Because it is, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's one of those things. There are very few things where a lot of the people who I respect have different opinions. Usually, most of the people I respect kind of line up in one opinion on something cultural, but this time, difference of opinions, and I think it's interesting where that comes from. Force of Light for $4.99, thank you, says highly perverted men are typically abusive as they are warped. They begin to view women as objects, not worthy of respect or love. Tate is repulsive. I share your opinion, and I thank you very much for the super chat. Your average patriot nerd. Hello, $1.99 super sticker. I can't see what it is, but thank you very much. And here, let me take that off the screen. Oh, good. She says I'd love to. I love talking to those ladies. Force of Light, you should also follow if you haven't. If you don't know who they are. Okay. I've got something else queued up here. Let me see if I should play this now or get into what makes a man, what are qualities worth emulating, which I want to talk about. Actually, yeah, let me talk about this now because I thought of this example as well. And this is the K-Dub clip that I have queued up. I was thinking about that whole point about when you live by the idea of the most important thing is like what perceived political tribe you're in or left or right or whatever, when that's the most important thing, and you live by you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, which is crazy. If you live by that, it slowly over time, like, it turns you into a hypocrite. You start behaving like hypocritical leftists who don't have any universal principle or truth that they follow. They'll say one thing if it works over here to get what they want. They'll say the opposite if it works over here to get what they want. You know, they'll say a Christian cake baker must be forced by the government to bake a cake for a gay wedding. He doesn't have the right to choose not to do that. But then they'll say, you know, they'll be the first to say, oh, a private company can do what they want when they're censoring at the government's behest, right? Like they'll just say whatever works because their only allegiance is to their political tribe and winning. And so they're hypocrites, speak out of both sides of their mouth. I do not want to live like that. And it makes a mockery of whatever beliefs they claim to have. It makes a mockery of it when that comes to light, when they're exposed, when the hypocrisy, I guess, when it reaches a point like with Weinstein where the abuse or whatever, it reaches a critical mass and it becomes exposed and then they're tossed aside eventually. And the leap I'm making here may not be immediately evident, but it made me think of this other thing I saw in the news with a public figure just a couple short weeks ago, but we know the news cycle travels so fast that this may seem like a while ago to some. This was July 27th. So I care very much about people in, like, my primary tribe, as I view it, is people who follow Christ, who are trying to follow Christ. We're all human. We're all going to sin. We're all going to make mistakes. But you don't live in that sin. You don't openly rebel against God and say, you know, I'm going to be proud of this sin. I'm going to keep living in it, God. Like, that's not the path. The path is like, oh, I did this thing. I realized it was wrong. Thank you, God, for showing me, and repent and then change your behavior. And some of those sins you may struggle with. I have struggled with to leave, where it takes you a while for it to click, where it takes a while of God like talking to you before you get out of it. But anyway, my point is, I'm very highly, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really bothered by the kind of con artists or wolf in shepherd's clothing who you find in the church sometimes, who do not live according to their stated beliefs. I would rather hang out with a non-believer who I think is sincere and who's trying to walk in truth, even though they don't believe in God. I would rather hang out with Pyrotomsky, my mod, who's a resident atheist here. Much rather hang out with Pirate than someone who claims to be a Christian and is openly living in defiance of God and like proud of it and speaking things out of the other side of their mouth that do not align with gospel, like a lot of these woke pastors, because they're wolves in shepherd's clothing. They claim to be one thing and they're not. They use other people's sincere beliefs. They speak some nuggets of truth and they use that as a cloak. And I can't stand it. And so I've also seen this weird pushback once in a while. online where similarly you criticize someone like a woke pastor, and it's not the same to the same degree as this whole Tate thing, but every once in a while I've seen that sort of like, oh, that's a Christian pastor, that's a you know, don't say anything. What? No. It's like more important for me to say something when I think about that behavior. And so this example, it's a lot of build up to get to this, but there's a representative in the state of South Carolina, which is my home state. That's where I'm originally from. Her name is Nancy Mace. And I'm going to pull up K-Dub's video on this because he's got a little short clip at the beginning here. Again, K-Dub True, if you don't follow, go check him out. He talks a lot of theology, culture, rap, music. And here, let me put this on the screen. So the reason this caught my attention a couple weeks ago, and I had some opinions about it, was because she, I guess she's a Republican. She is a congressperson. She says she's a Christian, and she was on her way to, this is at a prayer breakfast. Okay, she's going to a prayer breakfast, so she's presumably courting people to vote for her or support her, or whatever, who are Christians who would be at a prayer breakfast. So I think in light of that, what she's doing here is especially gross, because it's like maybe she didn't realize she's revealing that she doesn't actually put a whole lot of faith in her Christian beliefs. But it's like, oh, are you just at the prayer breakfast to like use other people's Christian beliefs like a con artist would? Yeah, I think you might be. Here's what she got caught saying at the prayer breakfast.
Another year, another standing room only event. And when I woke up this morning at 7, I was getting picked up at 7:45. Patrick, my fiance, tried to pull me by my waist over this morning in bed. And I was like, no, baby, we don't got time for that this morning. I got to get to the prayer breakfast and I got to be on time. And a little TMI, but he can wait. I'll see him later tonight. But I was here early.
After this disturbing joke, Nancy C received a lot of pushback from Christians. Praise God for that. Saying how disturbing this joke was. Nancy's comeback was to essentially say her pastor was okay with that. The fact that you have a pastor that's okay with you living in fornication and in sin unrepentantly shows the problem with you and your pastor.
So I just wanted to pull up what she said when people like called this into question, which I think they absolutely should. Here's the thing. As I mentioned, sometimes when you become a Christian, you, especially at the beginning, but even later, because sin can creep up on you. You can struggle with something that, like, it's a problem. You're trying to address it. But you're working on it and you're ashamed of it, that you're still struggling with it. And I'm going to give you a great example. When I first became a Christian, I was still living in sin. I was still having premarital sex. And I was going to a women's Bible study group where, I just confessed to them about everything. I just wanted to confess. I was like, here's what I've done in my life that I'm ashamed of before finding God. Some of the horrible mistakes I made. And here's also things I'm struggling with now. And those women told me what they thought, but they weren't hateful about it. And they weren't like pushy about it. And I continued to come to Bible study, without it being something that they were constantly hammering on, like, you're living in sin. They didn't shove it down my throat until God worked on me. Every time I would go to church, anytime I would open the Bible, I was always coming back to the same verses about taking off the old self and putting on the new. God was convicting me. It's all he had in my head at the time. Like, every verse, I kept coming back to that until it became worse to continue to live in that sin than just to say, okay, this seems like a huge sacrifice, but I'm going to do it. Like, it's so selfish, such a sacrifice to give up sex for marriage. But God convicted me on that. And when I finally came to that Bible study and I told those women I was like breaking up with that dude and kicking him out of my house or whatever, it was little period between the breakup and then also kicking him out. But they were like, thank goodness, finally. Like, it's like, oh, so I guess an argument could be made that they could have been a little more forceful with their opinions. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe it was the right thing to let God work on me and get me there. But I finally came to that realization that, like, God doesn't want me doing this. God doesn't want me living like this. And I understand why. I don't always need to understand why. But I am grateful when he helps me see why. That's a guideline. Why that's something he says don't do, right? Living in sin. Sex before marriage. I think I understand why that's in there. Even if you're not a believer, I think it's bad for you because you're forming chemical and emotional bonds with people that you may not want to be a life partner with. Like your body's releasing oxytocin every time you have sex with a person, and that's a bonding hormone. And it's like, I know a lot of women, especially maybe more women than men, who find themselves emotionally attached to and in love with someone that started off as just sex. And then it's like, oh, but now I love this person. I guess, yeah, we're moving forward because I love him and we're going to get into a relationship. It's like, maybe you should have picked a person that made a good partner before you started bonding with them. Like, I came to where I understood it, even if you're not a believer. But that wasn't why I decided to obey God. Not just because I understood it. And so when I was in that period where I was still struggling with it, I confessed to my Christian sisters in Bible study, but I didn't brag about it. I didn't say it casually like this woman just said it at a prayer breakfast, like it was nothing, like it was no big deal, like it wasn't something that I was ashamed of. I didn't talk about it like that. That's the problem Christians had with what she said. That it was like just this casual mention of, yeah, I have sex before marriage and I almost had sex this morning. Gonna happen later tonight, prayer breakfast. That's the way she said it. That's not how God calls us to live. And it's certainly not how he calls us to, like, deal with something that we know is against his will. Even if you're struggling with that, I'm not saying it's like wrong to struggle with it. You're going to struggle with things if you're a believer. But you don't like talk about it like in that proud, dismissive way. I mean, that just showed me what she thought about it. Like, it's not a problem for her. It's not a problem for her at all. Like, and then she goes on, because when people push back, she went on to say, here, like K-Dub pointed out, she went on to double down and say, I go to church because I'm a sinner, not because I'm a saint. Yeah, we all go to church because we're sinners. And the point is, we're trying to, like, not live in sin, not live in it. What you're doing is saying, like, it's cool to live in it and talk about it and brag about it like it's no big deal. And she says, I'm glad. Then she goes on to say, like K-Dub said, that basically her pastor's okay with it. I'm glad those in attendance, including Senator Tim Scott and our pastor, took this joke in stride. Pastor Greg and I will have a little extra talk about on Sunday now. Laughing face. I worry about your pastor and what kind of shepherd you have. If that's no big deal. Like, I don't want a shepherd who looks the other way if they see me living in sin, or even worse, bragging about living in sin of any kind. I want a shepherd who's going to pull me aside with other elders and talk to me about it. Like, I don't know. This just blew my mind. And I'm bringing it up because I was reminded of it with this Andrew Tate stuff, where people are like, oh, it's no big deal. Don't say anything. This person's on our side, I guess, because she's a Republican. They're like, oh, she's a Republican and she's a Christian, and don't say what you think about this. And if it's a good moral standard, or if it's a good reflection on Christianity, or if it's Don't say if you think she's a con artist or, keep all that quiet. Why? Because she's a Republican? No. My allegiance is to the word of God, like trying and failing many times, but trying to live by that standard. Somebody said something interesting about this whole Tate thing, and I think they were spot on. And they said, when you live by the enemy of my enemy is my friend, when you live by political tribalism or whatever, you're basically saying that you're God, that you're up here at the top of your hierarchy. It's like I'm going to set the standard. And yes, it's going to be hypocritical at times because I have decided that it's worth it. And I have decided it's worth it to. I see people do this all the time with different unethical behaviors where it's like they don't consider themselves liars, but then they'll lie because, well, it's for this good reason, I've decided. Or, they don't consider themselves cheaters, but they'll cheat someone. But it was for this reason, this good reason. Backstabbers, whatever kind of immoral behavior. Had this happened to me with someone close to me once before, where it was like, oh wow, like I never thought this person was capable of these things. And then I realized, oh, like that's because they're their own God. They don't have a standard that's higher than them that they're following. It actually was a blessing in disguise for many reasons, one of which it showed me the value of my belief system. Like, I have this path that I'm trying to follow that I did not set. And yes, I know there's people who Christian, like this woman that we just looked at, who don't live by the standard and who act like it's no big deal, and who will try and twist the standard and twist the word of God, like woke pastors will try to twist it to fit whatever they want to do. They're still trying to make themselves God, but use the Bible to do it. That's a sin. That's gross. That's con artistry. Even if you're deceiving yourself. I know that. I know those people exist. I know that manipulation of the Bible exists. What I'm talking about is sincerely trying to live according to it. Like you sincerely try to live according to this path that's not from you, not from your head, from something higher. You have to hold yourself to it. You have to hold yourself to that. You don't get to play God and say, oh, it's okay for me to lie in this situation because I've decided that the ends are good. It's okay for me to behave in this immoral way, and it's okay for me to not tell the truth here, or it's okay for me to, cheat, lie, steal, whatever. The immoral thing is, it's okay for me to do it because the ends justify my means. I've decided. Why? Because I'm playing God. Even if you don't realize that, that's what you're doing. And so this whole idea, I agree with this person that said this whole idea of like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And the highest thing is like, I guess, political tribalism or some strategy of like, you don't say what you really think about the morality of a person who's held up as a role model for men and has huge cultural influence. You don't say what you really think about that person's character and whether or not they make a good role model because they're somehow in our tribe or on our side. That's you setting yourself as God and saying, I'm gonna make the determination. I'm making a move here. I'm making the move and I'm deciding that it's worth it for political reasons or whatever reasons. It's worth it for me to bend the truth or admit the truth. And I don't want to live like that. Being able to see this and having had it touch me with someone who, pulled the wool over my eyes and behaved in ways I didn't think they were capable of, it helped me to see it helped to confirm that the path I chose years ago to start trying to follow the word and trying imperfectly to walk this path that God has set out for me, that's the right thing to do because the rules are not coming from me. I'm still human. I'm still going to try to get around that once in a while. But the rules God catches me. I've given this silly example before, but in case you haven't heard it, I'll give you the silly example because I think it's a funny anecdote and illustration that helps illustrate this. You may have heard that women are bad drivers. I'm not saying whether that's true or not. That's a joke. But I did once drive one of my gig jobs. I drove my boss's van through one of those gas station car washes where it was too big to fit in the car wash, but I didn't realize that, and I just tried to force it in there, and it basically rolled like a can opener. It took the top of the van off. It was terrible, and then I just had to gun it to get the van all the way through, and it totally ripped up the top of the van, and it broke the top of the car wash. And I like pulled over after I got out of the car wash. I'm like, I called my boss, like, oh, I know I'm gonna have to pay for this, and I did have to pay for it. I was like, hey, I just did this thing where I drove the van through car wash, and I wasn't laughing. It was pretty terrible. But I called him and told him. As I was talking to him, my flesh, my Adam nature, whatever Christians want to call it, my little human mind was like, are there any cameras here? Do I have to go in and tell the gas station what happened to the car wash? I didn't see any cameras. I get off the phone with him. I seriously got back in the van and was starting to be like, it's okay. My brain, you know how fast your brain can work when you're trying to justify something. My brain had already jumped several steps ahead and was like, it's a big corporation, this gas station. They probably got insurance. They'll take care of the fixing the car wash, And I was like getting back in the van to leave, and God stopped me. And that wasn't me. I'm sorry. It makes me emotional because I'm so grateful for this. And I can't explain it to you if you don't believe yet, or maybe you won't ever believe. I can't explain it, but it is not me. My humanness, old me would have just left and excused it. And if this anecdote doesn't work for you and you're some moral whatever, you don't need God, you would have gone in and done the right thing without God. Okay, great. But I'm sure you can think of another example where you did the wrong thing in your flesh. You did the wrong thing and you justified it. That's human nature. And before I could leave, I couldn't leave. God spoke to me, and it was like not an audible voice, but it was like, if you don't go in and tell them what you did, that you broke their car wash and you're responsible for it. It's not a little thing. God knows you are lying by omission. God knows. And God knows that you know that God knows. And then you got to live with that. And I don't want to live with that. I don't want to live with disappointing God. I don't want to live with disappointing my creator. I don't want to live as if my belief system means nothing and my beliefs mean nothing. And that's not me. Anyway, didn't mean to get all emotional on you. That's the beauty of the word. That's the beauty of Christianity. It's a silly anecdote, but that is the beauty of it. I hope that one illustrates it well. And I think people who live without that, it's easy for them to make those choices easier. And even some people who say they're in Christianity, yes, I can already hear the skeptics. Yes, I know there are people who don't hold themselves to what they say they believe. I know that. I know there are con artists out there, and I know there are people who make mistakes, who sin and in Christianity, and I know all of that. But what I'm saying is, some people don't have that roadmap at all. They don't have, I didn't used to have that. It was like, whatever, my reason is God, right? And whether or not I can justify something and still think of myself as a good person, but like this little white lie won't matter, or this won't matter, or and that's I am so grateful that I not only have shepherds who who I can trust will tell me if I'm behaving, in disobedience to God. But that God will do that, because I don't want to live in that kind of, I don't want to live knowing that God knows that I did something that makes him displeased. So that's my best attempt at explaining all my tumbled thoughts about this whole Andrew Tate thing. And somehow we got to the van story that wasn't on my list. But if you haven't heard that story before, have a laugh at how wrong it was. Okay, I still have time. I've got this here. I want to pull this up. So after all of this, I don't think Andrew Tate is a moral leader at all. I think he's a bad choice. I do understand why he's popular, because as we've said, masculinity's been under attack. Men have been under attack, and people want someone, a strong person, a strong character to push back against that. What I'm saying is find another role model who does that, in my opinion. I would not want any young men I know in the church or otherwise, like, friends, kids. I would not want them emulating him or looking up to him. I don't think anybody should emulate him or look up to him. And I think it leads you to the question, like, well, what qualities, what characteristics make a good shepherd or make a good leader or role model? And the first thing that came to mind for me, now I know he's not an elder in the church. He's not even in the Christian church. But once again, this is where you're going to get a Christian's perspective. This is my belief system. That's what I view the world through. So the first thing that came to mind were the qualifications for elders. And we recently, in my church, brought on a new elder. And so we studied these, or my pastor, Bradley Helgerson at the Church on the Square in Georgetown. I should have mentioned that earlier when I mentioned him. But anyway, he did a sermon on this. So here they are. These are the qualifications for elders. And I think these are a good rule of thumb. And for the people who say, like someone said to me in my comments, well, some of the stuff Andrew Tate says is true, or looks like it has a foundation in Christianity now, like some of the stuff he says about strength and strong men. And I'm like, great. Okay, I'm going to go straight to the source of that truth. As I mentioned before, a lot of con artists, a lot of cult leaders, a lot of predators of different types, they pepper truth into their snake oil. That's why they're successful at what they do. The Nexium leader did the same thing. They pepper useful bits of wisdom into what they're selling. Scientology does it. Go to the source where they're getting that stuff from. So I'm going to go straight to the Bible then. I don't need to get all the snake oil that comes with what Andrew Tate is selling. You can go to the Bible and look at, what are qualifications for good, strong men and role models. So I'm taking these qualifications for elders because I think it's the best thing you can look at if you're looking for, like, what are the qualifications for a role model. An elder is a role model in the church. So this is from Titus chapter 1 verses 5-9, and it says, this is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. If anyone is above reproach, the husband of one wife, and his children are believers and not open to the charge of debauchery or insubordination. That means they're not like Tristan Tate said all kids are, right? He could turn any of your daughters into a hoe. Not true. So it says he must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, his children are believers and they're not open to the charge of debauchery or insubordination. So he's raised his kids, right? Okay. For an overseer as God's steward must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant. I think this guy's pretty arrogant, this Tate guy. I don't see a whole lot of humility in this man. I see the opposite. I see a lot of hubris. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered or a drunkard or violent or greedy for gain. I think this guy, Tate, like a lot of con artists, shows a lot of greediness. It's all about, he's bragging about how much money he can bilk off of men. He's bragging about cheating the sex workers out of what he told them they were getting. I mean, greedy for gain, right? So it continues. He must not be arrogant, quick-tempered, a drunkard, violent, or greedy for gain, but he must be hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firm to the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine and also to rebuke those who contradict it. I think this is a great rule of thumb if you're trying to judge if someone is a good role model for you or not. This is kind of what I look for in my role models. And not all of my role models are Christian. That might surprise people. But I think sometimes God uses all different kinds of people, and sometimes people are pursuing truth, and I know some atheists who are pursuing truth, and I see them pursuing it more than woke pastors are. And I think it's just, in my opinion, they haven't realized yet that truth is God. They would probably laugh at me for saying that. It's like, oh, of course, Keri. But I think that's what they're doing. And anyway, I think this is a good rule of thumb for your role models. And here, I'll take that down. There was one other thought. If I wrap this up with that last little thought, and I don't have it out there later, I'm gonna be like, why didn't I remember it? But that's okay. Pirate says I am laughing. Yes. He's my resident atheist mod. Give it up for Pirate, guys. I think Pirate pursues truth, and that means he's pursuing God. He's laughing. He's like, I see what you're doing there. Cameron Pasha for $10. Thank you so much. She says, I was very moved by your story at the gas station. In Islam, we say the highest level of faith is to worship God as you see him, and knowing that even if you cannot see him, he sees you. Thank you very much. I love this guy, Cameron, by the way. I haven't talked to you in a while, and it's good to see you in chat, and I'd love to have you on and talk about this. Because I think you offer a lot of wisdom. That's a great example of someone who's a role model for me, who's not a Christian. He's Muslim. And I think he pursues truth. So this is just a funny comment I saw from early on in the video. Adam says, Trudeau is what passes for a man if you order on Wish. Yes. Yes. Okay. I think I've gotten through most. There's still something that I remembered that I wanted to say and I've forgotten it, but I think I've gotten through most of this. Cameron, I know you stuck around this whole time, and I haven't seen, if you're texting me, I haven't seen it yet, but I really would like to save it and do it. Oh, much love to you, my spiritual sister. I would love to do it another day, partially because my bladder only lasts for 2 hours. TMI. And also because I want to think about like who else might be interesting to have, like maybe Force of Light also, so we could have, and maybe someone else who has positive things to say about Tate or whatever, who disagrees. Might be nice. I hope that's okay. I'm sorry you stuck around this whole time. Okay, good. All good. We'll do it next time. Inshallah, God willing. Also, dude, Cameron, we have to talk about, if you haven't seen it yet, I watched the Lakers show with my husband. It's called Winning Time. And there's some really interesting character development there with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And there's a really great scene where he goes to the mosque and gets like realigned. Anyway, if you haven't seen that, we could talk about that too. So I appreciate it, dude. Okay. That's it. Thank you guys for hanging out today. Thanks for sitting with me through my tumbled thoughts. And if you're new here, I appreciate you joining on a kind of a ranty day. And I hope you'll check out my interviews. I do a lot of interviews with people about my old belief system, woke ideology, and different aspects of it. Friday, I put out an interview with Mad Chismo, which so interesting. That dude has just led an interesting life. We talked about leaving cults, we MLMs, and he is a hero. He was, served in the army, also was a cop, also wrote comedy for comedians, and just has like a really interesting perspective on things. So go check out that interview. I have a couple of several interviews I've recorded now that I'm going to be putting out over the next few weeks. We are getting ready to travel. My husband and I, so blessed because my husband, he does music for a living. And so I get to travel with him sometimes to really amazing places. Um, and even if it's not like he's making like hugely mainstream successful or whatever, we both acknowledge like what a blessing this is. You get to have like a vacation that you're working on, you're making money to cover the vacation, and it's cool. So I get to go with him to Europe, and I'm going to be leaving in a little over a week. And so if you are in, these are the places we're going. If you're in Switzerland, Germany, Amsterdam, or Paris or France, or anywhere else in France, hit me up, send me an email. I'm going to go through my emails this week, deprogrammedpod@gmail.com. Let me know what area you're in, and if I'm coming there, I'd love to meet up, or maybe you can come to a show. And I'm going to post his schedule again because he's added some more dates. I'll post it on the community page on YouTube and also on social media. So it would be cool to meet people in some of these other countries. And also you'd have fun. My husband's new album is out today. If you want to get, it's called Moonlight. It's a like Spanish guitar, and there's 2 covers on it that are amazing, and the rest are all original songs. And that's out today if you want to hear what kind of music he does. So anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Hey, Brahma Bull. Oh, are you going to Houston to see Chrissy? Oh, I'm not sure. I was going to, but I can't remember now. I've got so much going on before I leave for Europe that we're trying to get done before I leave. I can't remember what's on my schedule, so I'll have to check and see. But I'll post if I'm going. I try and see her whenever she's in Texas. Oh, somebody says On the Road Again by Willie Nelson. Can I tell you something funny? This weekend, Saturday, I went to a couple of the Brave book events at libraries. So they had this national day. This is so cool. They basically said, instead of just protesting the library events that we think are inappropriate for kids, like sexualized things or having drag queen story hour, whatever, we're going to start creating things. We're going to hold our own library events, and we're going to read wholesome and faith-based and patriotic books to kids. And so the American Library Association, which is totally captured, super woke, of course, like most organizations today, tried to stop them. And Kirk Cameron, the actor who's a Christian and part of the Brave Books things, he said, I'm going to sue you. Like, this is a public space. I can reserve it like anyone, like the drag queens can. And so they had to allow him. And so this past Saturday was this big national day where in libraries across the country, these groups got together, Citizens for Defending Freedom and other things, got together and read books that were faith-based or patriotic or wholesome for children. So they had all the kids on the floor, like a reading hour. And there was this one part where they were giving away they were giving away prizes, and they were doing a trivia for the kids, and they were doing American history. And these kids were bright. They knew things that Gen Z doesn't know. So they were asking them, like, what do 13 stripes stand for on the flag? Things like that. And, what year did America gain its independence from Great Britain? Things like that. And then at one point, this is such a Texas crowd. Texans will get this. They said, who started the tradition of shooting fireworks on Independence Day? And this little boy was like, Willie Nelson. It was so cute. It was so cute because Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic, everybody in Texas knows about that, right? So it was just like, I was like, what a good answer. He should have won something for that. Who started the tradition? It was Willie Nelson. Okay, guys. I'm going to take off. Oh, Mr. Tickle Trunk, thank you for the super sticker. Hello, sir. Good to see you here on this channel. 2 Canadian buckaroos. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming and joining us. Okay. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.